Hi class, welcome to the workshop on queries. What's a query? Well, it's just a question. Query in English is a synonym for question. You ask a question because you want certain information. You ask a question of a database, you ask a query of a database because you want certain information to come back from the database. The usual questions in English are who, what, where, when, and why. If you're writing something for a journalism class, you got to be sure to answer all of those questions, and then you got a good article. The query questions are really close, but just a little bit different. What, where, when, and how. What columns do I want? Remember, a column is like a column in Excel. It's one piece of information, one attribute of information. So what columns am I looking for? Where? From what tables in the database do I want to draw these columns? I might want the name column from the people table. So I would say, what column? The name column. Where? From the people table. When? Under what conditions do I want these columns? I might say, I only want the people whose last name is M or larger, so above M in the alphabet. So I want the name from the people table when the name is greater than or the name is past M in the alphabet. And how do I want the results sorted? That's the final question. How? I might want them sorted alphabetically by last name. So what, where, when, and how? We'll look at each of those in turn. But first, let's take a look at how exactly the queries work. So you make a query to the database asking for the columns, the tables, under what conditions, and giving the ordering. The database opens those tables that you've specified, and it looks in each row of that table to see, does it meet the criteria that you've specified? It compares that row to the conditions. So if the last name is greater than M, it'll say, yes, this is a good one. If the last name is less than M, it'll say, nope, don't want to give you that one back. Gathers up all those results and gives them back to you. Don't worry for the moment about exactly how does it give them back to you. If this was a conversation, I give you back information by speaking to you. A database gives you back results, but let's not worry at the moment how it gives you back results. But it does give you back results, and in fact it gives you the columns that you asked for from the tables that you asked for, but only the ones that meet the conditions that you asked for, and it gives them back to you in the order that you asked for. So if I want the last name from the people table, where the name starts with M or greater, and I want them sorted alphabetically, the database will go through, will open up the people table, look in every record, find the ones that are greater than M, and give them back to me in alphabetical order. All right, let's get down to the technical details of querying. There's a keyword, a special word, a reserved word, a word that you have to use for each part of the query. The word you use for columns, I want columns, what do I want, is select. The word you use for which tables you want is called from. The word you use in order to specify the conditions under which you want those columns is called where. And finally, ordering is quite simple, order by. So a query has these four parts: a select part, a from part, a where part, and an order by part. So let's use this knowledge and start playing around with Facebook and get some data out of Facebook. Now where we're going with this and what I want you to think about is we are going to query a database in order to get information from that database so that we can put it on the screen. Soon you're going to write some queries for your events database to get information out of your events database and put it on your events page. But let's look at Facebook first and postulate what kind of query we might make in order to get the information that is necessary to create a news feed. So here's a news feed, typical news feed, and here's a very simple database. So remember, we've done this before. We looked at the news feeds and we said, well, what would be the database that you might need in order to create all the information for this news feed? And the first idea is to have a very simple table, and all that table does is just have everything in the news feed. An ID, a picture, a name, text, date, time, and you can see the picture corresponds to that picture. The name corresponds to Mark Fleischman. The text corresponds to all that text, likes American military photos. And there's a date and time. The date and time doesn't happen to be shown here, but the date and time is necessary because why? Because we want to sort these in reverse chronological order, from latest to earliest. That's the way a news feed works. So even though the date and time are not shown here, they could be shown if we wanted them to, or Facebook wanted them to be, but right now they're not shown, but they are necessary. They're not necessary for displaying the information, they're necessary for sorting the information. Okay, so this is where we've been before. We've tried to link database tables to news feeds and other pieces of user interface to say what in the user interface requires what part in the database. Now let's take a look at the query. Select. We want the picture, name, and text. See how we need the picture, name, and text? So we need to select them. We need that query to give us the picture, the name, and the text. Otherwise, we can't build this news feed. From where? From the notification table. There's our table right there. It's called notifications. And each of these notifications has pictures, names, and text. That's what we want. Select picture, name, and text from the notification table. Where? Where the person's ID is my friend. We don't want every notification. Man, could you imagine if you got in your news feed, you got every notification in all of Facebook? That would be crazy. We only want the notifications where the person's my friend. And finally, how do I want them? I want them sorted by date and time, descending, going down from most recent to least recent. So there you go. There's the user interface on the right. There's the database that creates that user interface, and there's the query that ties the database to the user interface. I query the database, it gives me back the picture, name, and text, and from the picture, name, and text, I can build that news feed in reverse chronological order, from most recent to least recent. Okay, got it? Let's go on to a more sophisticated example. Here's a little bit more realistic table, and you'll remember that we showed you this kind of table structure earlier in the course, where a person has friends and there's notifications. We did it with posts, but notifications works exactly the same way. A person has a picture, a last name, and a first name. That's the person. The notification, on the other hand, has text. The notification itself has text. As we said before, the date and time is not shown, but we still need it because we're going to sort this by the date and time. And by the way, people have friends, and that's how we're going to get which notifications are going to be shown in my news feed. It's where the person is a friend of mine. Okay, so this is matching the user interface for notifications or the news feed to a more sophisticated database structure. Now let's look at a more sophisticated query. We still want the picture, name, and text, but we want it from the notification plus the person table plus the friend table. So all three of those tables are involved because I need all of that information. Now notice I get the text from the notification table, but I get the picture and the name from the people table, and that's just fine. There's no indication here of date and time because I'm not going to show the date and time. I don't need to see the date and time, but I am going to need it for sorting. Now the where friend 1 or friend 2 is me, but the person is not me. So I don't want my posts in this news feed. I want the posts of another person. So there's a little bit of logic there to say that I need the friend table, by the way, because I'm never going to know what person 1 and person 2 are. Person 1 and person 2 is me because either person 1 or person 2 is me, and I'm a friend of this person who's making the post, who's making the notification that goes in the news feed. So this is a little bit more sophisticated there. But think about it, and just when you do these, just write in plain English as close as you can or as specifically as you can, what are the criteria? In this case, the criteria for getting people and notifications out of the database is they have to be by someone who's my friend. And so either person 1 or person 2 in the friend table has to be me, but the other person is not me. Okay, so that's select from, where, order by, date and time descending. So what happened between the simpler query and the more complex query? More tables came into play. A, and B, I had to have more sophisticated idea of when do I get back those columns. Same columns because it's the same user interface, same sorting because it's the same user interface. Okay, here's an even more realistic one. Now, the query is the same. The only thing that I'm doing is I'm making a more sophisticated notification table. So I'm still getting the picture, name, text, but now the text, if you look closely at a notification, there's more to a notification than just text. For example, I have this thing called on. So Kanye West is on Spotify. Looking a little bit further, we still have the picture, we still have the last name, we still have the first name, and now we have an action. Zach Kamara is listening to something, to the text listening is an action. That's what they're doing. They're doing it on Spotify. Blood on the Leaves by Kanye West is the text. And so we have the text, Blood on the Leaves by Kanye West. And you can see we could probably even go further because Blood on the Leaves is the title of a song. Kanye West is the artist of the song. So we can continue breaking this down. But what I wanted to show you is that something that seems a little simpler, and we just called text before, if you look a little bit more closely, it becomes a lot bigger thing, and you can always break things down further and further. But this is the furthest that we're going to break it down. So to review, all queries have these 4 words: select, from, where, and order by. Select tells what columns do I want from the database. You can see here that we need the picture, the name, the text, the picture, the name from the picture, last name and first name from the person table. We need the type, we need the action, we need the text, and we need on from the notification table. What tables are we looking at? Person, notification, and friend. What conditions? The same conditions as before. I want my friend's posts. And what that means is that person 1 or person 2 has to be me in this friend table because I have to be linked to this person. But on the other hand, the other person, whoever's not me, has to be someone else that's my friend. And then I still order them in reverse chronological order. Okay, that's the basics of querying. It's really pretty simple. Where it gets hard is figuring out that logic of how do I select rows from the database, and also figuring out how the database itself links to the user interface. So today you're going to be doing that for things that come out of other user interface, but the next time we meet you're going to be writing queries that are specific to your event system. So here's how to go about the original work. Choose a level. As always, we have newbie, apprentice, and master, and then do just like what I did. So here's an example. Point from the database to the screen. You can see an arrow on the screen here, and point from the database field to the place on the screen that is represented by that database field. Then when you're done with that, all of the arrows are all of your selects. Everything that is on the screen is something that I have to select. Obviously, the tables you're going to select from are 1 or more of the tables that I'm already showing on the screen. Then figure out under what conditions am I going to select those, and what order are they in. So clearly, I think you can see that the order of weeks here is by the week number, and it's week number ascending from lowest to highest. So choose the newbie or the apprentice, which is a little harder, or the master, which is the hardest, and do that work. Point from the database to the screenshot, just like I did in the examples, fill in the query, and when you're done, save the output, save your slide into something called intro to queries.pdf, upload it to G-Class, and your TA will give you an evaluation. All right, that's it for now. Thanks, and we'll talk again later.